a 233-year-old bank, one that financed the Louisiana Purchase, survived Napoleon, and served the British royal family, was destroyed in a single weekend by a 28-year-old who had no trading license and no finance degree. The losses were discovered on a Friday morning. By Sunday night, it was gone. Not acquired. Not restructured. Sold for £1 British. This isn't a story about a criminal mastermind. It's a story about an institution so arrogant it handed one junior employee enough power to end everything, and then refused to look. To understand what fell, you first have to understand what stood. Barings Bank was founded in London in 1762, 13 years before the American Revolution. Over the next 2 centuries, it became something far beyond a bank. In 1803, Barings arranged the financing for the Louisiana Purchase, the transaction that doubled the size of the United States. It financed Britain's war effort against Napoleon. It was the personal banker to Queen Elizabeth II. The Economist magazine in the 19th century listed the 6 great powers of Europe: Britain, France, Russia, Austria, Prussia, and Barings Bank. That is what Nick Leeson destroyed. Not just a company, an institution that had quietly shaped the modern world for 2 1/3 centuries. Nick Leeson grew up in Watford, a working-class town north of London. He left school at 18 with modest qualifications and landed a job as a clerk at Coutts Bank, processing paperwork. In 1989, he joined Barings as a back-office settlements clerk, the kind of role that processes trades other people make, checking figures, filing confirmations. He had no trading license, no finance degree. He was organized, ambitious, and good at solving problems. When Barings sent him to Jakarta in 1992 to untangle a years-long paperwork crisis involving millions in uncertified share certificates, he fixed it. That one success changed everything. London noticed, and London sent him somewhere new. In 1992, at age 25, Nick Leeson was appointed general manager of Barings Futures Singapore, the bank's new derivatives trading operation on the Singapore International Monetary Exchange. He had no formal trading credentials, but Barings made a structural decision that would prove fatal. To avoid hiring a second manager, they gave Leeson control of both the trading floor and the back-office settlement department simultaneously. The same person placing the trades and confirming them. This is not a minor oversight. Separation of trading and settlement is the single most fundamental control in banking. It exists for one reason: so that no one person can place a losing trade and then make it disappear. Every bank in the world explicitly prohibits the combination. Barings handed it to a 25-year-old to save on payroll. The trap was set in July 1992, by accident. A junior trader on Leeson's team, named Kim Wong, made a simple error on a client order. The loss was £20,000. Leeson, wanting to protect the young employee from disciplinary action, hid it in an obscure internal account numbered 88888. The account was meant to be temporary, a holding pen for a minor mistake that would quietly be reconciled later. But in the weeks that followed, Leeson's own trades began losing money too. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. And every time account 88888 was there, invisible to London, accessible only to him. What started as a gesture of kindness became the architecture of fraud. The hole in account 88888 grew from £20,000 to £100,000, then to £1 million, then to tens of millions. And still London saw nothing because Leeson made sure they saw only what he chose to show them. While account 88888 quietly filled with losses, London received a very different picture. In 1993 alone, Leeson's reported gains represented 10% of Barings' entire global earnings for the year. 10% of a 233-year-old international bank, generated by one office, run by one 25-year-old in Singapore. Senior executives flew him to London for awards dinners. He received bonuses and recognition. His name appeared in internal publications as a star performer. Not once did anyone pause to ask the obvious question: How does a junior trader with no formal qualifications consistently generate returns that the bank's most experienced traders cannot match? The answer, of course, was that he wasn't generating them. He was inventing them. And the more London celebrated his invented genius, the more he had to keep the illusion alive. The warnings came twice. In 1993, Barings' internal audit team flagged concerns about the Singapore operation. Their report noted the dangerous concentration of power in Leeson's dual role and recommended immediate separation of trading and settlement responsibilities. London management dismissed it. Auditors, they said, didn't understand derivatives trading. In 1994, the auditors returned with a second report. This one specifically named account 88888, flagging it as an anomaly that required investigation. London management dismissed that too. The same explanation, the same wave of the hand. Internal audit reports are among the most reliable early warning systems in any institution, but only when someone reads them. 2 reports, 2 dismissals, a £208 million loss growing in the dark. By December 1994, account 88,888 held £208 million in concealed losses, nearly half of Barings' entire capital base. To prevent the gap from surfacing, Leeson was now running a second operation alongside his trading, a full-time fraud. He borrowed cash from other parts of the bank, routing it through account 88,888 to plug shortfalls before quarterly reporting cycles. He sent fabricated trade confirmations to London. He forged client account statements. Each deception required another deception to cover it. The system was fragile, exponentially complex, and entirely dependent on one thing: the market moving in his favor before anyone looked too closely. Leeson was waiting for a single big winning trade, one move large enough to erase everything. He just needed the right moment. Then, at 5:46 in the morning on January 17th, the ground moved. The Great Hanshin earthquake struck Kobe, Japan at 5:46 in the morning on January 17th, 1995. Magnitude 6.9. 6,434 people were killed. Over 100,000 buildings collapsed. It was a catastrophe of staggering scale. For financial markets, the consequences arrived within hours. The Nikkei 225, Japan's main stock index, went into freefall. Leeson had been betting heavily that the Nikkei would remain stable above 19,000 points. Within the first session after the earthquake, it crashed below 18,000. Every point it fell cost Leeson millions. The hole in account 88888, already at £208 million, was about to become something categorically larger. And Nick Leeson made the decision that sealed the fate of everything. A rational trader, facing catastrophic losses after the Kobe earthquake, closes the positions, takes the loss, survives. Nick Leeson doubled down. In the weeks following the earthquake, he bought futures contracts on the Nikkei 225 on a scale that had never been seen from a single trader. He was attempting to single-handedly reverse the decline of the Japanese stock market through sheer purchasing volume. At his peak exposure, Leeson had purchased over 20,000 Nikkei futures contracts. He controlled 49% of all open futures positions at the Osaka Securities Exchange. One man, nearly half the market, trying to move a national economy with borrowed money he had already spent. The Nikkei did not respond to his intervention, continued falling, and with every tick downward, the losses in account 88888 compounded at a speed that was now mathematically unstoppable. Between January 17th and February 23rd, 1995, 37 days, Nick Leeson's losses grew from £208 million to £827 million. £827 million. $1.3 billion. Barings Bank's total capital was £470 million. The losses exceeded everything the bank owned by nearly double. On the morning of February 23rd, a financial controller in London finally gained access to account 88888. The number on screen wasn't a trading loss. It was an extinction event. Senior management made frantic calls to the Bank of England. Accountants were dispatched to Singapore. The bank was already insolvent. 233 years of history of royal patronage, of wars financed and nations built, reduced to a number in a spreadsheet. And Nick Leeson was no longer at his desk. On the morning of February 23rd, Nick Leeson placed a handwritten note on his desk. It read, "I'm sorry." Then he walked out of the Barings Futures Singapore office with his wife Lisa, hailed a taxi to Changi Airport, and boarded a flight to Kuala Lumpur. From there, they flew to Brunei, then to Frankfurt. He had no escape plan, no offshore accounts waiting, no fake identity prepared. He was 28 years old, and he had just destroyed the most prestigious bank in British history, and he had nowhere to go. He later said he simply ran because he didn't know what else to do. 3 words on a piece of paper. That was all that remained of Nick Leeson in the office where 233 years of banking history had ended. That weekend, Saturday and Sunday, February 25th and 26th, 1995, Bank of England Governor Eddie George worked the phones. He called Deutsche Bank. He called Lloyds. He called NatWest. He called every major financial institution in Europe capable of absorbing Barings' liabilities. Every single one declined. The losses were too large, the liabilities too uncertain, the due diligence impossible to complete in 48 hours. By Sunday evening, one offer had come in. Dutch banking group ING would take Barings, its name, its client base, its 4,000 employees, and all of its debts. The purchase price, £1. A 233-year-old institution, the Bank of Queens and Emperors, the institution that helped America double its territory, sold for a single coin. The deal was signed on the evening of February 26, 1995. Nick Leeson didn't know about the £1 sale. He was still moving. 9 days after fleeing Singapore, on March 2, 1995, German police arrested him at Frankfurt Airport as he attempted to board a connecting flight. He was extradited to Singapore, tried, and in December 1995 sentenced to 6.5 years in Changi prison. While incarcerated, he was diagnosed with colon cancer. He underwent treatment behind bars. He served 4.5 years, released in July 1999. The story did not end there. He wrote a best-selling memoir. A Hollywood film was made about him, with Ewan McGregor playing Leeson. He remarried. He became, improbably, a sought-after public speaker on risk management. The 28-year-old who destroyed a 233-year-old bank now charges thousands of pounds per hour to tell boardrooms how to prevent it from happening again. The Bank of England's Board of Banking Supervision published its investigation in July 1995. Its conclusion was unambiguous. The primary cause of Barings' collapse was not Nick Leeson. It was management. 2 internal audit reports had been dismissed. The dual-role control violation had been knowingly permitted to save on hiring costs. No one from London had ever independently verified a single trade made in Singapore. The investigation found that senior managers had been warned, repeatedly, and had chosen not to act. Leeson was the instrument. The institution was the failure. Every bank in the world subsequently mandated strict separation of trading and settlement roles, a reform that should have existed at Barings in 1992. 233 years of history ended not because one man was dishonest, but because a system full of brilliant people forgot the most basic rule of institutional trust: verify. Barings Bank survived as a name under ING for a few more years before the brand disappeared entirely. The Louisiana Purchase financier. The Queen's banker. The 6th great power of Europe. Gone. Nick Leeson still gives speeches. Account 88888 cost one institution and rewrote global banking regulations. The legacy of Barings is not the fraud. It's the reminder that every empire, no matter how old, no matter how decorated, is only as strong as the systems it builds to protect itself, and only as safe as the people willing to read the warnings when they come. If stories like this are what you're here for, subscribe to Rise and Ruin. A new collapse every week. Same question every time. How does something this great fall this far?